What's up, everybody? It's Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we got Chris Rosvoglou back on the podcast. Your second time coming on, Saints analyst and host of the Straight Up Saints podcast. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Absolutely, Alex. Thank you for having me. Really excited to talk football with the playoffs coming up, and I'm just glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Excited for all the playoff games and our two teams going up against each other, so excited for that. So let's get into this. I mean, Bears Saints. So how are you feeling? Like, this is the first year where the Saints wouldn't have a first round bye. What's your thoughts on that?
It's crazy. So initially, to be honest, Saints Twitter was like, oh, it's just their luck. Like, you go 12-4, you get the 2 seed, but 2 seed doesn't get a bye this year. And funny enough, last year the Saints go 13-3, but there were 2 other 13-3 teams, and the Saints fell last in terms of the tiebreaker. So the Saints were a 3 seed, 13-3, get bounced wild card weekend. So I think a lot of Saints fans are just starting to think it's not their luck. And I could go even further. 2011, the Packers went 15-1, the Niners went 13-3, Saints went 13-3, Saints were a 3 seed. So I think Saints fans are just starting to accept that regardless of what the record is, if you take out the Super Bowl season, they're just not going to get a bye week. It just doesn't happen anymore. But I'm really interested to see how the new format works. I'm sure you are too, Alex. It's like, you're going to get that extra wild card game, but how much of advantage does that 1 seed now become for those 2 teams, the Packers and the Chiefs, because they're the only teams that are probably going to be fully rested for the divisional round. So it is a little bit frustrating for the Saints, obviously, but I think when you look at it, it's better off it's this way than, let's say, they finished 12-4 and they were tied with Seattle, and because of a tiebreaker, they didn't get a 2 seed that had a bye. So I'll go with it, but we'll see what happens. I'm really intrigued with this new format.
Yeah, and you never know. It's also the, rest versus playing hot and all that. So but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. As a Bears fan, it's kind of like, if we had beat Green Bay, I'd be feeling a lot more confident about it. You'd be on a winning streak. You'd feel like you earned a playoff spot. With the loss, it's like, and with the 7 seed, it's like, do we even belong? So, but I'm hoping it's a competitive game. How is Breeze doing? That injury that he took with the 11 broken ribs, the collapsed lung. How has he looked? And like a 41-year-old, how do you bounce back from that? That's crazy.
To be honest, for the second question, I really don't know, because I was thinking about Alex and I'm in my 20s, and I was like, hey, look, if I have 11 fractured ribs, I'm staying in bed for at least 2 months. Like, I'm not getting up. I don't care. And that part's incredible. As for how he looks, it's actually an interesting thing. So the first 2 weeks, it was kind of a struggle for Breeze because he was shielding his ribs after a throw. He'd kind of lower that arm to make sure he wouldn't get hit. But then we saw last week, actually, against the Panthers, he was taking some deep shots down the field. Now, look, a deep shot for Breeze is more of a 30 to 35-yard throw, not like an actual deep shot, because obviously, he's 41, about to be 42, and he's older. But he actually looked pretty precise. It doesn't help that the ribs aren't 100%, but on the flip side, we noticed, Saints fans have noticed, Drew Brees' shoulder is actually closer to 100%. He was on the injury report when the rib injury happened with the shoulder injury as well. His shoulder was bruised up. He wasn't throwing the football as well as he wanted to. So that actually got better for Drew. He's throwing the ball with a little bit more zip than he had earlier in the year. But the downside is, if he gets rushed, is he going to be able to make a throw and not worry about the ribs? Because if he worries about the ribs, he's going to short arm a ball, and that could get picked off. That could be an incomplete pass. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. But Drew Brees has definitely looked better over the last couple of weeks, and I'd like to think another week means he'll feel a little bit more comfortable. But he did admit his ribs won't be 100% till after the year's over anyway. So it's something he's going to have to play through. But right now he's playing through it at a decent level.
Nice. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. I mean, the Bears have struggled getting pass rush, getting to the quarterback too. So hopefully we can do that. Do you expect to see a lot of Taysom Hill in this game?
I think a decent amount. I think it depends on what's going on. So right now he's on the injury report because of a concussion, but he was limited today. So usually limited on a Wednesday, he'll probably make it to that Sunday game. So I think they'll have him. I'm really interested to see what they do with him, though, because the first time around, the Saints didn't use Taysom as much at the quarterback. Well, they actually used him as a receiver that week because the Saints the first time around didn't have Michael Thomas or Emmanuel Sanders. So I want to see, does Taysom Hill get used as a quarterback? If he does, then the Saints could have some interesting packages there. that can throw off the Bears. So I think that we will see Taysom Hill used in a variety of ways, but I think more so now as a quarterback and a runner this time around compared to the first time where he was used as a receiver because, frankly, the Saints had no one at receiver, so they had to throw him out there. So I do think we'll definitely see Taysom Hill.
Yeah, now you guys got everybody. Perfect timing for us. Like, we're good. I'm worried because Michael Thomas is a beast, Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith, all these guys. It's going to be tough. Roquan Smith is a big one. I'm holding out hope. I saw someone say that he's out, but they haven't announced it yet from what I've seen. I'm hoping that he can gut it out because if we don't have Roquan Smith, I don't like our chances. I think you guys are going to pick us apart.
Yeah, I think the thing about Roquan, Alex, is that he is one of maybe 5 linebackers that can keep up with Kamara. Like, Roquan's great.
Yeah.
Like, he really is great. And I'm actually glad you said that. I saw a rumor, too. People were like, oh, he dislocated his elbow. He can't play. I haven't seen anything. I mean, look, he didn't practice on Wednesday. That we all know. But no one said he's out. And my guess is Roquan's a tough dude. He's going to try and play. If he can play, he will be out there. But, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He's so good. First time around, if I'm not mistaken, he had 11 tackles. The Bears are going to need him, obviously, on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Mooney's a question mark, too. We're definitely going to need Mooney coming off the ankle injury. Kamara, I mean, is this the first game we're going to see him since the 6th touchdown?
Yeah.
The Vikings, man, I'm not looking forward to that. He was ridiculous in that game. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The Saints have kind of owned the Bears, man. Sean Payton being a former Bear, I was like, man, I wish we could have landed him. He's a great coach. You got to have so much respect for Sean Payton being able to pull out wins without Drew Brees the last couple of years. His record is amazing.
It is incredible. I agree. And the stat that Saints fans are using this year to kind of justify Sean Payton being great, Drew Brees and Michael Thomas have only played 10 quarters together this year because Michael Thomas got injured early, then he came back, then Brees got injured, and then Brees came back and Michael Thomas was out again. So they never really lined up with each other this year. And it's kind of rare to not have your quarterback wide receiver combo that's so lethal. We saw last year, Michael Thomas had 149 receptions. To not have that in the lineup and then still win 12 games. Sean Payton's been great. And the Bears thing that you brought up is interesting. It seemed as if after the Bears beat the Saints in 2006, Sean Payton was like, okay, I got to get these guys. And he's been doing it lately. And I do wonder, because Sean's a petty dude, I do wonder if he prepares for the Bears a little bit harder than other teams. Because
I think so.
I think he wanted to win in 2006, and the Bears didn't just beat the Saints. They beat him by a big margin. So I'm sure he takes that one to heart,
I remember his post-game interview on that too, and he was down. Like, he was mad. You could tell he wanted that win, and it's like he uses that for fire going forward. How do you like your Saints' chances? I mean, they should beat the Bears. I would think so. But long-term in the NFC, having to go to Lambeau, potentially, maybe a rematch with Tampa Bay at some point. How are you feeling?
I'm always – when it comes to the Saints, I kind of have mixed feelings because I think when the Saints play their best football, they can beat anyone. I strongly feel that way because they're balanced. They have a good running game. Drew Brees can still throw, not with the best of them, but he can still throw. Their defense has really been the story this year, the number 4 defense in the league. It's been probably one of the biggest shocks. The problem for me, and obviously this, everyone knows this at this point, the Saints haven't shown up in the playoffs, and that's been an issue. So, you can win games in the regular season, and that's all great, and that's fine. But at some point, they need to get over this playoff drought. And if they can beat the Bears and gain a little bit of momentum, I'll feel good about their chances. But I need to see them show me. And the reason I say that is, remember last year, Saints versus Vikings, a lot of people said the Saints were going to beat the Vikings, and the Vikings went into the Superdome. And at the time, the Superdome had fans. There's only going to be 3,000 fans this Sunday. And Kirk Cousins and them pulled out an overtime victory. So I think for the Saints, if they play up to their level, they can beat anyone. But the problem is there's a lot of times where they stoop down to their opponent's level, and they're going to get beat that day. So I'm kind of 50-50. I know they're good enough to win a Super Bowl, but they have to show me. They really have to show me.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be the motivation for Brees. I think he wants to go out on top, get one more championship before he goes out. So in that regard, I would like to see that. If they get there, I'll root for that. How do you feel about your run D against the Bears? Because to me, the key is David Montgomery. You can't put it all on Trubisky. You can't have him drop back 40, 50 times. We have to feed Montgomery get off the bus running. So how do you feel about your chances against stopping the run?
Well, first off, Alex, I want to give a shout out to David Montgomery because
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, oh, this guy just doesn't have it, and he was great this year, over 1,000 yards rushing, really good season for him. So I'm really happy for David Montgomery. I think you're absolutely correct because if you're the Saints, what you want to do, and I think this really comes down to the injury report. If there's an event where Darnell Mooney doesn't play, and let's say that ankle injury bothers him, if you're the Saints, you put Marshawn Lattimore and Allen Robinson, and you focus on stopping the run and basically putting the game on Mitch Trubisky's shoulders. And
Yeah.
if you can do that, that's probably the best scenario for the Saints. So the first time around, Montgomery had 89 rushing yards against the Saints, which is a pretty good day considering the Saints were really good against the run. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to that again, like you said. When Montgomery runs well, the Bears can dictate the flow of the game, and that's when their offense is performing at a high level. So it really is going to come down to the trenches. Can the Bears get a little bit of running room? And if they can do that, then you take the pressure off Mitch, and Mitch can use play action to open up some deep shots. And that's really where the Bears are going to be effective. So I do think, yeah, like you said, it's going to come down to this run defense, which was kind of struggling at the end of the year. They gave up over 100 yards to Miles Sanders. They gave up a lot of yards to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So can the Saints bounce back now that their D-line is fully healthy? And what do the Bears do? Because they've really been ascending in the run game a little bit. So I'm really excited to see that matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be key because, I mean, Allen Robinson is, obviously number one. Mooney is a question mark. Other than that, our tight ends, Jimmy Graham, which you know well, Cole Kmet, those are, hopefully. But I don't give us a good shot. I don't give the Bears a good shot. What's your thoughts on Trubisky? Because he was hot there for a little bit, for 3 games, 4 games, 30-plus points. And I felt like going into Green Bay, like, that was a game to kind of unleash Mitch, see what he's got. Let him wing it, let him throw it and see if he throws 3 touchdowns or 3 interceptions, and then you know what you got at quarterback. Instead, it was a very run, and it was short passes. It wasn't hardly besides one pass that went over 10 yards. I don't know if that's a recipe, to beat you guys either. Like, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think with Mitch, it's really interesting because I think the Bears did such a disservice to them by benching him so early in the year. And
Yes.
I know that Nagy wanted to try out Nick Foles, and the Bears were winning. They did get to 5-1 at that time. But, like, Mitch Trubisky, even if you didn't think he was the guy coming into this season, the Bears should have gave him the full 16 games so they can just get a final answer and be like, okay, he's not our guy or he is our guy. And they kind of left him in a weird spot where in the beginning of the year, he didn't look good at all. And then he misses a lot of time, comes back, and then actually does look good. And now the Bears are, again, in a state of unknown. The way I view Mitch Trubisky is he's never as good as his best day, but he's not as bad as his worst day.
Exactly.
And he's somewhere in the middle where he's an athletic quarterback who, if you're telling me there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, he is one of 32. It's just in a division that has Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford and Kirk Cousins. He needs to be better than that. He needs to be in the top 15, 16 range, and he's not there right now. But I agree, too, with the idea that the short passes aren't going to work. The way you beat the Saints is you run the football well, and you can get a good shot over the top, and you could have some explosive plays. And the Vikings did that really well last year. Ran the ball with Dalvin Cook, hit Thielen, hit Diggs, hit some guys for spots. With the way Robinson and Darnell Mooney have been playing, the Bears have a good wide receiver 1 and 2 combo. So, and I think Mitch rolled out to his left and hit Mooney on a really nice deep pass during the Packers game. It's like when you play guys like Rodgers and you play guys like Breeze, they're trying to methodically score on their drives. You got to make sure you're getting touchdowns, not settling for field goals. Yeah. And when they kind of go with that short passing attack, like you mentioned, it kind of seems like they're settling for 3 sometimes. So I'm not a Mitch Trubisky fan, but I'm also not a Mitch Trubisky hater at all. He's somewhere in that middle ground. And unfortunately, the Bears also are not playing to his skills. Like, why aren't they running him more? If I can recall, the best I've ever seen Mitch Trubisky look, or one of the best games I've seen him, was a Thursday night game against the Cowboys, and they ran him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he looked fantastic. And maybe that's not what Mitch is, but when you run him more, he can move. So the Saints gave up 100 rushing yards plus to Jalen Hurts a couple weeks ago when they played the Eagles. If you're the Bears, you gotta let him move. You gotta see what you got there.
Absolutely, and at least get him out where he's got, roll him out where he can use his legs. He's out in space, or he's got clearly defined throwing lanes. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm upset. Like after the first Packers loss, I'm on here saying fire Pace, fire Nagy, get these guys out of town. And the worst case scenario is sneaking our way into the playoffs, and it gives ownership enough to bring everybody back for another year. And so it's kind of in limbo, but we'll see what happens. Who do you think the Saints play? You know, presuming they beat the Bears, who do you think they are setting up to play next week, divisional round?
Honestly, I've been going back and forth, Alex, and it's tough because you know what it is? It's that Seahawks-Rams game that I look at, and it's a coin flip for me because those two teams go back and forth. And if the Rams were to win and the Saints beat the Bears, then the Saints automatically would face the winner of the Bucs-Washington game, which I'm kind of thinking people are picking the Bucs for that one most likely.
Yeah.
So I think the Saints they're either going to play, in my opinion, the Seahawks or the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers would be interesting because that's the third time they play this year. But I think I'm going to stick with Seattle. Because there's so much uncertainty with Jared Goff. So maybe Seattle wins by a field goal in a really tough NFC West battle. And that would be a fun one for me. I actually want to see Saints Seahawks because the last time they met in the playoffs was 2010 with the Beastquake. Saints probably want to get a little bit back at them. And Russell Wilson and Drew Brees are good friends, and Wilson actually credits a lot of his success to Drew Brees. And I think it'd be cool to see those two go head-to-head. So I'll go Seahawks, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get a third installment of Saints-Buccaneers in the divisional round.
I'm with you. I think the Seahawks beat the Rams with Goff being questionable, and I like the Seahawks better than the Rams, even with Goff at 100%. I don't really trust Goff anymore. Goff has kind of lost me. Their defense is playing a lot better, the Rams, so credit to that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. How are you looking at the AFC? I mean, in my opinion, and tell me if I'm wrong on this from your take, I think the Chiefs are more beatable this year than they are the past 2 years, based on what I've seen. I know they're explosive, they're the favorite, but I feel like they play down to competition a little bit, or they sleep a little bit. They trust that Mahomes can throw up 14 in a minute and a half, you know. But I think I think the Titans gave the Chiefs the best battle last year in the AFC. I could see Derrick Henry as like the recipe to beat the Chiefs. Keep Mahomes off the field, play ground and pound. Henry's got to go for like 203 touchdowns, and you still might win by a field goal. You know, what's your thoughts on the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs take that you have, I actually agree with the one thing, and the only reason why I try to just not, poke the bear when it comes to the Chiefs is because, what if they kind of have been playing this regular season with no sense of urgency and the playoffs kick, and all of a sudden they just turn it on? And it's so possible. It really is. So I definitely agree with you. They have been really – I don't want to say lazy, but it seems like they have just cruised past so many games this year, barely beating the Falcons, barely beating the Dolphins, barely beating any team really on the schedule. They really didn't have any blowout wins.
Yeah,
they didn't have any blowout wins, and it's just shocking to me. But the team that I'm looking out for, and they have to show me that they can win a damn playoff game, honestly, the Buffalo Bills, because the Bills are probably playing as good football as any team in the league right now. Yeah. And I never thought this would happen, but Josh Allen's a top 10 quarterback. It is what it is. We see it, and it's happening. So I think the Bills, if they're so young, if they can get that first playoff win against the Colts, and then they kind of realize, man, we have a really good football team, I think they can get rolling. And what really helps them out is I think the Bills are probably going to play the Steelers in the second round, and I think the Steelers just offensively don't have the firepower right now to keep up with other teams. So I think the best possible matchup would either be you have Bills, Chiefs, and Allen and Mahomes are just going back and forth, going for touchdowns. And the other matchup for me would be that winner of that Titans-Ravens game, because Titans and Ravens run the football so well. And to your point, if you're running the football well, Mahomes can't hurt you because he has to sit on the bench. So I think that's definitely a thing. Look, if I still had a pick, I'm still going to take the Chiefs just because they're so good. And we kind of just have so much trust in that team. But I agree with you. I am a little worried. Why haven't they blown out teams this year? Do they not care enough in the regular season? Because that would be weird. Or are they just not as good as they were the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. And we'll see. We'll find out here in the playoffs. When you said they got to prove they can win a playoff game to me, I thought you were going to go Ravens, because the last 2 years, Lamar Jackson, the Ravens should have won. And that's why this Ravens-Titans game is so interesting to me. I'm picking the Titans, but the Ravens are definitely good enough. Lamar Jackson's got to prove it and cut down on those playoff turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually think this is the weekend where it might happen. I kind of think that if it's going to happen, it better happen now, because I don't want to see the Ravens lose another game because if you lose a third one, the first time you give them a pass because you're a rookie. The second time you're like, okay, there's clearly something not here. And then if it happens a third time, then we have to all look at each other and be like, okay, the Ravens just aren't built to win in the playoffs right now. And that would be a legitimate problem because then as a team, you got to think about restructuring certain things. So they with the way the Titans are playing defense, or should I say not playing defense right now because they're just not doing it, there's no excuse why the Ravens can't win. Last year, the Titans' defense was pretty good. They had that pick six against Brady. They were playing really well against the Ravens, forcing turnovers like you mentioned. So the Titans don't have that this year. A lot of it's because of injuries. Clowney's just not playing right now. They're just depleted. They lost Logan Ryan to the Giants. So there's reasons why they're not that good this year on defense. But it is weird to me. And I agree, just like it's time for the Bills to win a playoff game, it is definitely time for Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, to win a playoff game. And if they don't, the Titans might start feeling themselves and being like, all right, let's go. Let's make this run again. And it's definitely possible. And for the Ravens, you start doubting yourself. You're going to make the playoffs every year and be like, can we do it? Like, it's a legit thing.
Yeah, it's interesting those teams that are like great in the regular season get to the playoffs and for whatever reason can't get it going. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So many good playoff games. Are you keeping your eye on what's your feel on Drew Brees and how many is he year to year? Do you think he's coming back next year? And what should the Saints be looking at for replacing him?
Yeah, so I kind of think this is his last year, and I was on the fence earlier this year because he started picking up his game a lot. Like before the rib injury, he had that Buccaneers Sunday night game where he had 4 touchdown passes, no picks. I'm like, okay, Drew Brees still can have times where he looks like Drew Brees. But then I'm thinking to myself, so he's 42 in a couple weeks from now, and 11 fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. Like I'm sure that kind of is like, man, like that. Do I want to do this anymore? And he does have the NBC gig lined up, so it's not like he has to worry about getting paid and having a job. He's got that ready to go. So I do kind of think this is last year. I wonder if what happens in the playoffs dictates it. If they make a long run, I think he's gone. If they get bounced out of like some weird circumstance, I do wonder if he says, okay, let's try it one more time. This is a good roster. Now, in the event he leaves, because I do think this is his last season, I think the Saints do one of two things. I think they either go with a Jameis Winston Taysom Hill combo where Winston will be the starter and Hill will play a lot of snaps like he does now, but maybe you up the usage because I think Sean Payton likes Jameis Winston more than people think. And I kind of think the Saints didn't play Winston because Taysom's been there longer. They kind of wanted to see what they have in him because they paid him. And on the flip side, when you don't play Jameis, he's going to be a free agent this year. No one's going to really sign him. They haven't seen him play in a year. So I think the Saints kind of saved themselves money. They kind of hid him from the rest of the league. So I think we'll see either a Jameis, Taysom Hill combo, or I think the Saints will try and trade for a veteran quarterback if one's there. It's going to be tough because they have cap issues right now. But if you're the Saints and let's say a Matt Stafford becomes available and you think you could get him, go for it. But I really think it's going to be a Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill type thing.
Would you have any interest in Carson Wentz? What's your thoughts?
So, I think Carson Wentz, I wouldn't for the Saints because of their cap issues and his contract's big, but this is my take on Carson Wentz. If he goes to the Indianapolis Colts, I think he'll get his career fixed because I think Frank Reich will figure out what to do with him. And the Colts have like $60 million in cap space, so they can make it work with the contract. I think Carson Wentz, I think people are quick to forget what he has done in this league because the bad moments have been pretty bad, don't get me wrong. But, last year he took the Eagles to the playoffs. The first time around in 2017, he was probably going to win the MVP before he tore his ACL. So I think people are too quick. And you remember Derek Carr almost won an MVP with the Raiders, gets hurt. And then people are starting to say, man, is Derek Carr even good anymore? And I thought Derek Carr played really good football this year. So the Eagles, first off, they created such a mess. I mean, you draft a quarterback, you pay Wentz a lot. Like, I don't even know if either quarterback's going to be their guy next year because Hurts didn't look good as a passer. And Wentz is done there. I mean, he's checked out mentally. So they've created a terrible situation. But I do think that Wentz can be fixed. I just don't think it'll happen with the Saints, but I do definitely think he could be fixed.
Yeah, I think teams are too quick to give up on quarterbacks. And I think part of what hurt Carson Wentz was a lack of confidence. And it's hard for any quarterback to play in Philly. It's like, you hear the noise. And fans are tough. The media is tough. They're going to say all that. So, yeah, I agree with you. I do think Colts is the best place for Wentz. Looking at the playoffs, if we're going to do Super Bowl prediction, I think you're leaning Chiefs. Who do you think matches up in the Super Bowl? You think the Saints can get there?
Well, I definitely think the Saints can get there, and I think if the Saints play up to their potential, I actually do think it would be Saints-Chiefs. But, like, at the same time, it's hard to buy into something when, like, 3 straight years they could have got there and they haven't got there, and you kind of have a little bit of doubt. I definitely do think it's possible that it is Saints-Chiefs. But what I'm going to go with Packers. And I think I'm going to still go Chiefs. Like, I do think that I trust them, which would kind of be boring that it would be chalk. It's 1 seed versus 1 seed. But, I mean, Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, I think we all sign up for that. I do want to add, I'm a little not skeptical, but I want to see how the Packers look without David Bakhtiari. So, because when you don't have your left tackle, and he's such a good left tackle, I'm a little nervous because if you verse a good pass rush, what kind of happens? It could be a question mark for me, but I think it will be Chiefs-Packers, but it wouldn't shock me if the Saints can get there, and it also wouldn't shock me if the Bills get there, if the Bills get hot. But I'm going to go with Chiefs-Packers. I know State Farm would love it. You'd have Rodgers and Mahomes, so that would be their dream matchup.
Rematch of Super Bowl I, too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, there you go, actually. I think people wanted it last year, and they almost got it, but the Niners beat the crap out of the Packers. So.
Yeah. I think in the NFC, so the Bucs have been so up and down this year and hard to figure out. But on paper, they're the most talented, I think. And playoff Brady, is always dangerous. I think if there's one team that can go into Lambeau and surprise them, it would be the Bucs. And I think it'd be pretty cool if we had a Bucs-Saints NFC Championship game. That'd be pretty dope. If the Saints play the Seahawks.
That would be amazing. And so the reason the only reason I won't pick them is because as much as I trust Brady, I for some reason don't trust Bruce Arians to be consistent with the play calling. Like, for example, if Tampa Bay stomps Washington this weekend, and they certainly can, if they go to Green Bay, let's say, what if Bruce Arians just completely changes the play calling and it's not like when Brady's calling the shots, I actually weirdly just trust him to do everything there. Short passes, use Antonio Brown, use Scotty Miller, use Godwin in the slot. But for some reason, I can't shake the feeling that Bruce Arians at some point there's going to be something going on, and it's just not going to work for the Bucs. But I do agree. The Bucs have the talent. And the one thing I like about the Bucs, and people don't mention enough, is that they got a really good running back in Ronald Jones. I don't think Ronald Jones gets enough attention, and I agree with you. You're going to go into Lambeau. You need to be able to run the football, which is why the Saints do have Kamara and Latavius Murray. The Bucs have Ronald Jones, and even Leonard Fournette hasn't been that good this year, but he's a big back and he's physical. That's why I don't trust teams like Seattle who haven't run the football well this year. I definitely do not trust the Rams right now because Cam Akers is hurt, Darrell Henderson's hurt, so it's Malcolm Brown. That's not really anything impressive. And Washington, it's Antonio Gibson who's battling turf toe. And who are we kidding? No one's really trusting Washington to make a run anyway. So it's tough. And even the Bears, unfortunately, they haven't been able to beat the Packers this year. So it's tough to see if they'll pull it off. So I do agree. I think the Buccaneers are good enough to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking forward to it. You're saying you're going chalk Bucks Chiefs or no Packers Chiefs. I'm leaning. I'm rooting for Tennessee with that run game. I like Derrick Henry. I'm a pay the running back guy. So I love running backs. So I'm hoping for Titans and Titans Bucks is what I'm hoping for. But we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for the playoffs. Bears Saints on Sunday. Can't wait for that game. I hope it's competitive. I hope you guys don't blow our doors off. We'll see. But I appreciate you coming on here, taking some time to do this. It's a lot of fun. It's always good talking with you, talking some football. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I'll tell you what, though, Alex, I know you want a close game. After the last couple of playoff games for the Saints, I could use a blowout if it's possible. I can use a blowout because I've gone through, the Vikings, I've gone through the no call and the Minnesota Miracle last 3 years. I am exhausted, man. I can use, even if it's not like a blowout, like in terms of the scoreboard, I can use like a 27-17 victory. That would be comfortable for me. What I can't do is last year where it's like 20-20 against the Minnesota team that the Saints should not be tied with, and then it goes into overtime. And you're like, all right, well, it's over. That I can't do. But I absolutely appreciate coming on the show, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Can't wait for the playoffs. Always good talking with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for the support. Have a great week, guys. Thanks, Chris. And peace out.